Hello Year 1, I hope you had a lovely half term. I certainly did. It's been really beautiful weather here and I've enjoyed getting out and about, going for walks in the park, going for a walk by the river. It's been really lovely. This half term in RE, we're going to look at a different religion from last half term. So last half term we looked at Islam and this half term we're looking at Christianity. And Christianity is the biggest religion in the world. It's also the biggest religion in the UK. So it's really important that we understand what it actually means to be a Christian. What sort of things do Christians believe in? So that's what we're doing this half term. And today, this is our big question. What does believing in God mean? Christians believe in one God. They believe that that God is all powerful. So they can do things that would be impossible for humans. They think that God can do literally anything. There is nothing in the world that would be impossible for God to do. And they believe that God is all-knowing. They think that God can see and know everything that has ever happened. That's really interesting when you think about it. Christians believe in this figure that can do whatever they want to do. They're not restricted by any rules or any impossibilities. They can do anything and they know everything. They know everything that has ever happened or will ever happen. They can see into the future and see into the past. Quite an incredible idea, really. And so Christians also believe that God is not a human. God is a very different type of being to humans. I wonder, can humans do anything? Are there things for humans that are impossible? Just trying to think now. Yeah, I think there definitely are. I certainly couldn't go and push over a mountain. I couldn't hold my breath underwater for an hour. I couldn't fly. There are loads of things that we can't do when we think about it. So there are lots of things that are impossible for humans. So it's not possible for God to be a human because God could do all those things, at least according to Christians. And do humans know everything? Well, you can be really, really, really clever and you can know lots of stuff. And I'm sure lots of you are really, really clever and you do know lots of stuff. But you don't know everything. You don't know what's about to happen in the future. And you couldn't really know some things about the past. So, no, I don't think that humans could know everything and do anything. So Christians think God must be a creature that's not human. And then there's this question. Have Christians ever seen God? That's a really difficult question to answer. But most Christians would say you can't really see God. That God isn't something they believe that they could go out and touch or take a photo of. They don't see God as visible. They don't see God as something they could see or touch or point to or take a photo of. For them, God is not human. For them, God isn't necessarily visible. They can't see God. And finally, God isn't really a boy or a girl, because those are labels that we use to describe humans. So we'd say you're a boy or you're a girl, but we wouldn't really use those labels often to describe God. Now, that's not always the case, and often you'll see God referred to as him, which means that he's a man in some people's eyes. And we're just about to look at some paintings that people have painted of God. And we're going to see that often they depict or show him as a man or a boy. So let's have a look. Okay, so it can be really confusing because God is shown in lots of different ways in pictures and no one really knows what God looks like. So here on the top corner and on the bottom corner, you can see pictures of God painted by Christians with sort of grey hair and a beard. And then you can also see two other pictures, which I found when I went and looked on the internet for pictures of God. So let's have a look at these in more detail and see what they tell us about Christian beliefs about God. So there we go. In this one, God is shown as a man with a beard and grey hair and surrounded by lots of human-looking angels. So I wonder why that doesn't quite match what we were saying earlier. Well, firstly, it shows God as a man, and also it shows God looking very much like a human. So I'm not sure that really fits into our idea of what Christians see God as. In this one, God is kind of shown as light coming down from heaven. You might have seen these actually. They're quite common. If the sun is behind a cloud, then quite often you get rays of sunshine coming down. It's really quite beautiful. And some people see that and it reminds them of God. Quite often God is shown as like light or fire. And we can talk about that a little bit more later on this half term. So that's perhaps an idea of God in heaven, which is maybe above, Christians believe is above the earth, shining down. Another of God as an old man with grey hair and a beard. This is a very common image of God, but again, it shows him as a man and it shows him as a human, which isn't necessarily how Christians see God. And finally, look at this cloud. Wow, that's amazing. So the cloud is a hand. And I found this looking on the internet for pictures of God. So someone's seen that and they thought, wow, look, that's God stretching their hand down to humans here on earth. But really, none of these pictures, most Christians say, come even close to showing us what they think God is like. God is, for many Christians, just totally unimaginable. There's no way you could sit down and draw a picture of God. So given that you can't, or they can't clearly see God or point out God existing to others, Christians have to have faith to believe in God. And faith is a really important word for this half term. You might never have heard of faith before, but it's really important. So it's faith. Faith means trusting and believing in something, even if you can't see it. So this leads us on to the last bit of today's lesson, because we're thinking about these two things. You've got certainty. We can see there are clouds in the sky. You can send a plane out to go and find them. And everyone agrees that those clouds exist and people know how they were formed. You are certain. That's called being certain about something. I can see this mug. I can tap it. I can hit it on my head, although you probably shouldn't. I can paint a picture of it, take a photo of it. I could prove that it exists by just holding it up to the camera like that. I am certain that this mug exists. But faith is very different. Christians feel strongly that God exists, and they might even have experienced God, or at least believe that they've experienced God. But you can't take a photo of God. You can't say, oh, there's God, proved it. Doesn't work. So there are lots of people who disagree about whether God exists or not, but all Christians have faith in God. All Christians believe that God exists, even if they can't see them, or take a photo of them, or even draw a particularly good picture of them, or paint a picture of them, because it's so difficult. So that's what we need to focus on this half term. That difference between certainty, I know this mug exists, I know this can of Diet Coke exists, I know this pair of scissors exists, I know this notebook exists, because I can hit it, and I can knock it, and I can throw it on the other side of the room. But I'm not going to do that. Okay? And then there's faith. It's like, I can feel that God exists. Or someone might say, I read in the Bible that God exists. Or maybe they prayed to God and they experienced God. That's faith, and it's very different from saying, oh, here's a stapler. Certainty. And then God is all about faith. So, in today's lesson, in the booklet is a nice simple task. You've just got to circle the descriptions of God. So you could even go back in the video and watch. But you're just saying, well, is God very powerful or not powerful? Does God know everything or does God know nothing? And again, remember, this is what Christians believe. So we're not necessarily saying, I'm certainly not saying that God is real or not. But what's really important this half term is that we're just learning what Christians believe about God. Great. That's quite a long lesson today, but hopefully you enjoyed thinking about God a little bit and maybe having some idea, if you can have an idea, of what Christians think God looks like. Next lesson, we're going to be looking at Jesus, who hopefully you've heard of, because maybe you watched my video at Easter time and maybe you've looked at Jesus before in RE. and we're going to learn a little bit about what Christians believe is special about Jesus. So I'll see you then. I hope you have a wonderful weekend. Yeah, I hope it's really sunny as well. Bye, everyone.